Before there was the light bulb, the cylinder phonograph, and the motion picture projector, there was a small Michigan town that sat right along Lake Huron and the St. Clair River by the name of Port Huron. That town was about to be home to one of the most influential inventors of the 19th and 20th century, Thomas Edison. In 1829, Samuel and Nancy Edison lived in Ontario, Canada. They began their family with the birth of eldest daughter Marion. In 1837, due to political reasons, the Edisons moved to Milan, Ohio. Over the next 17 years, the Edisons would face great tragedy with the loss of 3 children. Their 4th child, Carlisle, would only live to be the age of 6. Samuel, who will also die young, passed away at the age of 3, while Eliza Smith would also pass at the age of 3. In 1854, in order to find more work, Samuel and Nancy Edison packed up and moved to Port Huron, Michigan, along with their 3 children, William, Harriet, and Thomas, to make a future in the lumber industry. Miriam, the eldest Edison daughter, remained in Ohio, as she had previously married in 1849 farmer Homer Page. Thomas Alva Edison was born February 11, 1847, and was almost immediately showing signs of his inquisitiveness. One story from his youth, while still in Ohio, came from the writings of his sister Miriam, who told the tale of Thomas going out to the hen house and sitting on an egg to see if it would hatch. Thomas was enrolled in public school, but due to a recurring illness following a bout of scarlet fever at the age of 11, his mother Nancy, who had previously been a school teacher, homeschooled him. His poor health and homeschooling led him to become an avid reader. In fact, in later years, Edison stated that the writings of Thomas Paine, an English philosopher who was one of the largest champions of American liberty prior to the Revolutionary War, would have a huge impact on him. Edison was also interested in history, but it would be a science book by the name of A School Compendium of Natural and Experimental Philosophy that would lead him into performing his first experiments. Soon the house would become full of so many chemicals that Nancy would ask Thomas to conduct his experiments in the basement, which would become the first Thomas Edison laboratory. Thomas Edison grew up at the time when young boys were expected to work at an early age. And in 1859, at the age of 12, Edison would secure his first job selling newspapers and refreshments aboard the trains on the Chicago-Detroit and Grand Trunk Junction Railway between Port Huron and Detroit. During long layovers in Detroit, Edison would read books from the writers such as Isaac Newton, whose book, The Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy, would be one of his favorites. Edison also read from the books and papers that he was selling, which made him quickly notice that there was very little coverage of local news. In 1862, the 15-year-old began to print his own local newspaper, the Grand Trunk Herald, which he sold on the train. The weekly newspaper ran for 24 issues in the first 6 months of 1862. At its peak, Edison was selling 200 copies a day. The money he made allowed him to employ 2 other boys who would help him with the presses and distribution. This would also be the time when Tom would be using his spare time to do experiments on the train between stops in the baggage car. In 1865, while mixing chemicals, a fire broke out in the train, causing the engineer to toss Tom from the train at the Smith Creek Depot. Many believe that this action caused more damage to Thomas's ear. But this would not be Edison's only business endeavor. Thomas also operated a vegetable stand in Port Huron, which he would sell vegetables from his father's farm, as well as other farms along the train line. In the 1830s, a new communication device appeared, the telegraph. It transmitted electronic pulses along an electrical wire. Telegraph stations were beginning to spread along the train line, so Edison had many opportunities to watch the telegraph operators at work. In 1862, Edison was talking with Mount Clemens station manager J.U. Mackenzie when Mackenzie's 3-year-old boy ran onto the tracks. Edison jumped down and saved him from being hit from an oncoming train. Showing his gratitude, Mackenzie taught Edison how to use the telegraph, soon making him a master at the art of Morse code. Over the next few years, his skills would allow Edison to work on railways in Canada, Illinois, and Michigan. He later claimed that his hearing difficulty was a blessing in disguise, as he would only be able to hear the messages at his own desk close to his good ear. In 1864, Thomas was working for the Western Union Telegraph in Indianapolis. By the end of the Civil War, Edison was earning $125 a month and had been promoted to first-class operator, leading Edison to end up in Cincinnati at one of the main telegraph hubs. It would be here that Edison would truly begin his experimental career with electricity. Being influenced by the works of Michael Faraday, Edison's work would become some of the most influential in the 19th and 20th century. Edison would never return to live in Port Huron, but his time growing up here would be celebrated in 1940 on the silver screen. The film Young Tom Edison, starring Mickey Rooney, had a world premiere held at the Desmond Theater in downtown Port Huron. Dignitaries and celebrities filled the theater, remembering the genius that was Thomas Edison and his connection to Port Huron, Michigan.